right, so first off, guys, funnel cake supplies. I need them Monday. Monday's when we're using them. So Monday, I've got the list up here to look at. It's also posted on Canvas. And if you're having issues while you're shopping, send me a Canvas message. You know, I'm flexible to some extent on these things with sizes and quantities, right? So just let me know. Just trying to make sure we have everything we need so that we can enjoy funnel cakes. All right, with that, let's check out the answers to the back of number 28. All right, making sure we have all of our work, all of our correct answers. So, beginning here, remember, I'm checking not only what's in the right box, but also the other answer, like the 449 and the 38. It doesn't have to be sig figs, just is it the correct answer, the correct setup. Okay, so here's 1, and then A and B from 2. Letter C is going to be at the bottom. So checking your molar masses, mole ratios, final answers, everything labeled. All right, so again, letter C I couldn't fit. It's going to be at the very end. So right now I'm putting up answer to number 3 and then the first part for number 4. Question? No? Okay. All right, here we go. So here's number 3 and then the first part of number 4. Yes?
What if our answer on the second part of 3 wasn't scientific notation?
Okay, yeah, so I needed to bring that up. The answer to number 3 there, 4.0 times 10 to the 2, that's correct sig figs.
Okay.
If you wrote 400, first of all, you would need insurance answer on that, but if you wrote 400, actually you didn't, but if you wrote 400, 400 only has 1 sig fig. If you wrote 400 point, that has 3 sig figs. That's the issue. That's why it needs to be in scientific notation, because you only want one of the zeros to be significant and not the other. So writing 400, you get correct answer points. That's just a sig fig issue. Okay. So now when I scroll, the first part underneath that green dashed line is going to be the answer to 4C, right, for this question with lithium and bromine. And then under that's going to be the answer to 2C, the one with the MnO2 and the zinc. Okay. So these are both the answers to part C, but number 4 is on top. Just scroll that up. And then number 2 is on the bottom. If I can get this where I want. There we go. And I don't know why. I feel like this is not zoomed right. It's okay. So what kind of questions do we have? Limiting reactant practice. Go.
How do you know which, like the 30, how do you know to start off with the,
All right, so in part C, what I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll up so we can see all of number 4. That way we can see the comparison here. What I sometimes tell students is that if I look at, my first 2 T-charts, if there's a part C where I have to figure out the mass of excess remaining, I'm going to use both of those numbers again. But my third T-chart should always start with whichever one was the limiting reactant. So since bromine was the limiting reactant, that T-chart starts with bromine, and then the other given, your excess reactant, starts the subtraction. So each given starts a new calculation, except one's the T-chart, one's a subtraction, and it's the limiting reactant that starts the T-chart. What we're trying to figure out is, based on using all 25 grams of bromine, according to the balanced equation, how much lithium would I use with that? That's what you're trying to figure out. Okay. So always you don't start with grams of the excess, because then I don't even know what you find at that point. Like, you would be finding grams of the limiting. How does that help you know how much excess is left over? It doesn't. So you got to start with grams of the limiting reactant from the previous part of the question. All right, other questions on this worksheet? All right. Then with that, it's officially funnel cake time. Whoop, whoop. All right. So we're doing funnel cakes, but you know what? This is chemistry class. We're not just going to get out our cookbook and follow that. We're going to do a chemistry style. So what we have here is we have a balanced equation for making funnel cakes. The recipe or balanced equation for our funnel cake says 3 moles of egg plus 2 moles of sugar plus 8 moles of milk plus 6 moles of flour plus 1 mole of salt plus 2 moles of baking powder equals 2 moles of funnel cake. That's our balanced equation that we're going to be using. Since we're dealing with ingredients that we cannot look up on a periodic table, notice you have been provided with relevant molar masses for all parts of that equation. So, how is this going to work? You're going to be getting in partners of your choosing, and each set of partners is going to be given a different card. On that card, you are going to find 2 numbers for 2 different ingredients. First thing you're going to do is you're going to copy them right here. Right? Those are the 2 givens for your funnel cake lab. One of them is your limiting reactant. That means your other is in excess, as well as every other ingredient that's not on the card. Right? But I'm giving you 2 so that you can figure out which ones of these.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Hi.
I got working on their intercom phone. There's an issue.
All right, so those are your 2 givens. One of them is your limiting reactant. The other one is in excess. So getting to your calculations, guys, that's the first thing you got to do is figure out which one of these is your limiting reactant. So you don't have to highlight this paper, but you're using these as your 2 givens. And for question 1, you're trying to find grams of funnel cake. Guys, that's a limiting reactant question. I have 2 givens. I have to calculate how much funnel cake each given could make. But when I have my 2 answers, what's the correct answer? The last one? The smaller one, the lesser one, right? So even though I might have enough milk or sugar to make more funnel cake, it won't matter, because once I'm out of egg, that's all the funnel cake that I can make. So for this calculation, it will require 2 T-charts. One for each of your givens, and they're both going to end with grams of your funnel cake. You're going to be doing this, I did forget to say, on a separate sheet of paper. You're going to be stapling it to the back of this paper eventually. Each partner has to complete their own calculations. You get to work together, but each person has their own paper with their own calculations. And guys, I do grade this pretty strictly on units, chemical formulas, as well as sig figs. So you'll want to make sure that you're paying attention to that. All right, the only other thing that it's asking you to do is, once you figure out that mass of funnel cake, right, that smaller number, you're going to write that down in step 5. Not 2, 5. So going down here, your answer to number 1 is going to go right here into this table. Theoretical yield of funnel cake from step 1. With sig figs, with unit, all that good stuff. All right, so then, number 2, you're also going to check for me up here. Check whether it was the limiting or the excess. You have to have one of each. All right, so now that you know which one you're going to run out of first. I don't know about this card. It might be the egg. I don't know. It might be the sugar. You're going to have to figure that out. But let's pretend it was the egg. All right, so this card, it was 29.17 grams of egg. If I know that that's my limiting reactant, that means I can write it in this table because I know that's what I'm going to use on Monday. That is how much egg I'm putting in my funnel cake. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that amount of my limiting reactant to figure out how many grams of everything else I'm going to need. So I'm going to start a funnel or a T-chart that's going to start with egg, and I'm going to say, hey, if I use 29.17 gram of egg, how many grams of sugar could I make? And then after I finish that T-chart, I'm going to start another T-chart that says, hey, if I use 29.17 gram of egg, how many grams of milk am I going to need to use with that? And then I'm going to start another T-chart that says, oh, if I know I'm using 29.17 grams of egg, how many grams of flour would I have to use with that, according to our balanced equation? Right?
You're all set now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when I'm done, I'm going to have 5 T-charts. The limiting reactant I don't need its own T-chart for because that's what starts all of the T-charts. But I need 5 T-charts for the 5 other ingredients. And guys, this is the key because on Monday when you're going to come in, these are the numbers that you're going to measure out. There's going to be balances around the room. All of the ingredients are going to be out, and you're going to be measuring these masses on the balances. So there's going to be a salt station and a sugar station and a milk station, right? And that's where you measure out these amounts. So again, you're going to use whatever you said was your limiting reactant from up here to figure out how much of every other ingredient you would need according to your balanced equation, your recipe. Questions on that step? Please make sure you're starting with your limiting reactant. There were 1 or 2 groups last period who wanted to start with grams of funnel cake. That's not best practice since that's a calculation. It's not conceptually wrong, but it's not best practice. All right, so what we're doing now with number 4 is we are trying to double check ourselves because if we mix up a bad funnel cake on Monday, Mrs. Tate isn't cooking it because I'm going to know that it's bad. I know all these numbers. I know what you're supposed to have, okay? So a check for yourself is you're going to add all 6 of these numbers together. And when you add all 6 of those numbers together, you're going to write it down here. And guess what? The number you get from adding these 6 ingredients together should be the same amount of funnel cake that you figured out you were going to make from step 1, because it's conservation of mass, right? If in step 1 I figure I should make 250 grams of funnel cake, then that means when I add up all of my ingredients, I should have 250 grams of ingredients, right? So this is going to be not a guarantee, but a good way to figure out if you made a significant mistake because these numbers won't match up. They can be off by about a gram, no less than a gram. And also, you should check on your notebook paper. Depending on your sig fig rounding, some people are going to round like 235 to 240. Obviously, it's not going to be close to 240. It'll be closer to 235, like the unrounded number. But I want you to put rounded numbers in here because I want to make sure you know how to do the rounded numbers. But you can check on your worksheet the unrounded numbers to make sure that it adds up. I'm not expecting you to show me your addition work. It's all these numbers here. I'm telling you, they're already right there. You're not going to show me that. So make sure you have the correct number of sig figs here. When you are adding, what is the rule for rounding numbers whenever you add them as opposed to multiplying or dividing? It's the fewest number of decimal places. So I don't know if you want to make a note. It's just for this column right here. It's the fewest decimal places of all of the 6 numbers that you added together. So go look. How many decimal places do the eggs have? How many decimal places in the flour, the sugar, the salt? Whichever one had the fewest decimal places. Was it no decimal places? Was it 2 decimal places? That's how many decimal places this answer should have. But remember, guys, from step 1, this was just a T-chart answer. So those sig figs match the sig figs of the given. When you have a T-chart, sig fig of the answer always matches sig fig of the given. All right, so number 7, just check. If it doesn't match up, you made a mistake. Go find it. Go check which molar masses you picked out. Go check if you typed it in the calculator wrong. Go check your mole ratios. All right, so last one here. Calculate how much of your excess reactant would have been left over based on the given amounts at the very top of the paper. All right. Here, I do want you to show me your subtraction because I am not telling you which numbers to use. So I want to make sure that you picked out the right numbers. But let me give you some help. Guys, these are your 2 givens. You know one of them is the excess. So let's go back to this card here. Let's say it was the 11.14 grams of sugar that was my excess. That means maybe in my pantry, I only had 11.14 grams of sugar. But since it's my excess, I also know I didn't use all 11 grams. So where can I figure out on my paper how many grams of sugar I'm really going to use? Where's that? It's where? No, not the molar masses. Where have we figured out how much sugar we'll really use when we measure stuff on Monday? Where what? No, not in the T-chart. Well, I mean, okay, there is a T-chart, but I'm saying on this paper. Where is it on this paper? Because the information will be on this paper. Where do we figure out how much sugar we're actually going to use? The number 3 chart, guys, right? Sorry, if we're talking about sugar, this number. Up here, if this is sugar and that's my excess, that's how much was in my pantry. This is how much I'm actually using. The difference between those is what's left over, right? This is what's in my pantry. This is what I'm using. So this has been recorded that you can refer to if you forget this over the weekend, but that's how we figure out the excess remaining, and I do expect to see that subtraction work with unit and formula, and then put your answer here. How do we round for this subtraction? Not sig figs. Yeah, and it's going to be the decimal places of the given, because the other one is a calculation, but decimal places of the given. Right, so it is a decimal place thing. Okay, so when you guys come into class on Monday, let me highlight, I'll do it in pink, everything that needs to be filled out. You'll have numbers here that you copied off of the card. You'll have checks in one of each of these boxes for which one was the limiting, which one was the excess. You'll have this whole table filled in. You do have to put a unit, but you don't have to write the formula because it's already written in the box. So you don't have to write sugar, flour, because it's already there. You're going to have this filled in, and that at least needs to have the unit on it. And then here, this does need the unit and formula so that I can make sure you're using the right formula. But in the tables, I've already labeled what the formula thing is, so that's fine. On your notebook paper is going to contain 7 T-charts total, and 1 subtraction will be on your notebook paper. All of that work on your notebook paper should have number, unit, chemical formula, right? Insurance answers if needed, okay? But that goes on your notebook paper. And the deal is that all calculations must be done before you come to class on Monday. You're not uploading to Canvas. They all have to be done before you come to class on Monday because you're using these answers to take measurements on Monday. You're not getting out a pencil. You're not getting out a calculator on Monday. You just have your numbers, and then we're going to be measuring stuff all period. So you do not have time to finish calculations on Monday. They need to be done before you walk in. But given the time here, there's going to be a number of groups that they're going to finish these before they leave. So even if you finish, please double check that all of your work is perfect and that all of your rounding is good, because that's where your grade is going to come from for this lab. Not how well you eat a funnel cake, but how well you do the calculations to figure out how to make the funnel cake. All right? All right, questions for me right now? Okay, so in just a second here, you guys are going to be breaking. You get to pick your partners, but it has to be somebody that's here today. Once you and your partner have gone to a place in the room, you're going to get a card. Your job is, number 1, to write the group number. The group number is at the bottom of the card. That's how I call you up when I make the funnel cakes, like, hey, group 5, group 7, Right? Then obviously you'll write your partner name, and then you need to copy down the 2 givens on the card. And then I'm going to come and collect the card back from you. Okay? But then you can get going with your notebook paper and your calculations. All right, questions for me?